Jujutsu Kaisen's Culling games is comprised of 10 different barriers with 10 different colonies. Each of these colonies have varying levels of strength depending on who's inside of them, but one thing is 100% certain, and that is that Sendai colony is the most deadly colony to be in. This colony is comprised of 4 special grade opponents who all have very complex and powerful abilities. And since we know that Kenjaku has been hunting players in the Culling games, I want to answer the question of what would happen if the other players hadn't been taken out by either Yuta, each other, or Sukuna, and see how Kenjaku would fare at hunting all of these players down. But first, I'd like to say that if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, since it'll tell me to make more Jujutsu Kaisen content just like this in the future. Now to begin, I like to get a gauge of how strong Kenjaku truly is and all of his abilities, and then we can go on to each individual character that is in the Sendai colony. Kenjaku is probably one of the strongest people we've seen in the series, and is one of the 4 special grades in the series who are known for their immense strength. He's also one of the only people in the series to wield 2 separate curse techniques, and to clarify, I mean 2 that he can use in battle. Of course, he does have his 3rd technique, which is swapping bodies. The first technique being engraved in the body of Suguru Geto, which is the one he's inhabiting now, is his cursed spirit manipulation. This works exactly how it sounds. It allows him to manipulate cursed spirits and use them to fight opponents in his place. These curses drastically vary in strength, as of course he does own some cannon fodder curses, but he also holds very valuable special grade cursed spirits such as Ganesha, a cursed spirit that nullifies obstacles at a conceptual level. Cursed spirit manipulation can be used in a multitude of ways, such as for distractions, or simply overwhelming his opponent with the sheer amount of curses he holds. And when you combine this with the fact that he has cursed spirits that can create illusions and disorient his opponents, he becomes even more deadly just with this technique alone. Based on simply having this technique, he was ranked a special grade, since we know that the higher ups of Jujutsu High weren't aware of this second technique. And this technique is an ability he gained from his previous body, Kaori Itadori, the mother of Yuji Itadori. Sometime in between Yuji's mother dying and Yuji being born, Kenjaku switched bodies with her and seemingly conceived and gave birth to Yuji. And the curse technique that was engraved on her body is one which is an anti-gravity system. And once again, this is exactly how it sounds, an ability that is used to negate gravity. This can be used on such a large scale that it's able to stop even a black hole from Yuki Tsukumo, which was stated to be able to destroy the planet. Kenjaku in character doesn't usually use this ability because he doesn't want anyone to know about it, but I don't know if that would hold true if no one is really watching, since the only reason he wants to hide it is because he doesn't want the higher ups to know about it. But if higher ups aren't present, or Jujutsu sorcerers in general aren't present, then he would probably be able to use this ability as he wants. So for the sake of the video, we'll have it confirmed that no one is watching this fight whatsoever. Kenjaku can also use this ability as a reversal, pouring positive energy into it, allowing it to do the opposite of what it usually does, and that is enforcing gravity onto his surroundings. Kenjaku can use this to make anything around him be hit with more than the normal amount of gravity that's on Earth, making it so they can't really hit him. He can also enforce his curse technique reversal onto his domain expansion, doing the same thing but making it a sure hit attack, meaning anyone inside of his domain will be hit with gravity multiple times higher than the normal Earth's gravity, and of course dealing severe damage. Another ability that we have to mention is his reverse curse technique, which is pretty much a given because of the fact that he's able to use curse technique reversal. Not to mention the fact that Kenjaku's domain is an open barrier domain, just like Sukuna's domain expansion. What this means is that their domains don't have an outer shell like all the other domains, so there's no way that these domains can be destroyed from the outside like something like Unlimited, which has a tangible and physical barrier. Kenjaku's domain in specific is also very strong because he is the 2nd best user of barrier techniques. His barrier was so strong in fact that it was able to rip away Yuki Tsukumo's simple domain in seconds. So the best chance that anyone in this fight has of beating would be to get him as close to death as they can, since they have basically no chance of beating him in a domain clash. But the fact that Kenjaku holds 2 offensive curse techniques isn't even the most impressive part of his kit. What's more impressive is the speed that he's able to switch between these 2 techniques, which is near instantaneous. And now that we've gotten Kenjaku's abilities out of the way, we can go over each character in the Sendai colony and how they would fare against him. Starting off with the cursed spirit, Kurourushi. Kurourushi is a special grade cursed spirit that lies in Sendai colony and is only driven by his desire to eat. His main fight is this fight with Yuta Okotsu, and he's actually the first person that Yuta fights in the Sendai colony. This cursed spirit is able to utilize masses of cockroaches to attack his opponents, and to be honest, Yuta is a pretty bad matchup for him because of his large amounts of cursed energy and cursed energy output. But Kurourushi also holds a blade called the Festering Life Sword, which is an enchanted blade that is said to mix life and death. The ability of this sword is to shoot high-speed insects at the opponent, and after they get through their skin, they begin to eat right through them. Simply 2 hits from the sword seem to spell the end for Yuta Okotsu, but unfortunate for Kurourushi, Yuta is able to output positive energy, dealing insane amounts of damage to cursed spirits specifically, since they are made up of cursed energy. But to be honest, Kurourushi's strength isn't that bad. He did force Yuta to use positive energy when he didn't originally want to, since he knew that other players like Uro and Ryu were watching him and he didn't want to show his full hand. But in pretty much every physical encounter that Kurourushi had with Yuta, he completely lost. And the only reason that Kurourushi almost beat Yuta was because he sent specific insects towards him that held some sort of fluid, so when Yuta cut them, they flew into his eyes and blinded him for a moment, allowing Kurourushi to take advantage of this moment and hit him with the festering life sword. And even though Kurourushi did force Yuta to use positive energy, he did not force him to use Rika. So not only did Yuta beat him without even needing to use Rika, he also doesn't even really scale to a base Yuta, because like I mentioned before, in every encounter he was losing. So I think it's pretty fair to say that Kenjaku would be able to beat this cursed spirit, and something to really drive this point home is the fact that Kurourushi was a cockroach cursed spirit who Kenjaku freed from his cursed spirit manipulation. This means that Kenjaku most likely beat him once and then freed him just to pad out the members in the Culling games. The same he did with people that he gave cursed techniques such as Takaba. So with that portion out of the way, Kenjaku is currently 1-0. Now we can move on to the next player, that being Dhruv. Dhruv is basically supposed to be the antithesis of Kurourushi, because everyone in the Sendai colony has someone that they're really strong against and someone that they're really weak against. And Kurourushi for some reason is especially vulnerable to Dhruv. Dhruv's technique, at least when Yuta Okkotsu uses it, uses his hair as a medium for Shikigami that he's able to summon, and the trajectory that the Shikigami fly constitute a domain that cuts and slashes any opponent it comes across. We know that he also has other larger Shikigami, but we don't really know what they do yet, so I'll be leaving them out for this video. All we have to base Dhruv's strength on is the fact that he is supposed to be very strong against Kurourushi, and the fact that he lost to base Yuta as well. But we know he isn't particularly strong because when Uro sees the output of Yuta's cursed energy, she knows that it was no wonder that Dhruv had lost. With that being said, Dhruv would most likely also lose to Kenjaku due to his lack of scaling and abilities. The next two are going to be the really heavy hitters for this colony and pretty much the main reason I made this video. And I'll start off with Uro. Uro's curse technique is probably the most interesting one that we see in the Sendai colony, where she's able to touch and grab space as if it were a normal surface. With this ability, she's able to distort space itself and even distort the people inside of it, such as when she distorts Yuta's arm and changes the shape of it. But she's also able to use it for destructive purposes, like when she uses Thin Icebreaker, where instead of aiming at the opponent, she rather aims her attack at the space itself, cracking it like a thin layer of ice and completely breaking through the opponent's guard. And this attack was strong enough to send Yuta flying through a building. And while the details of it are unknown, she does also have a domain expansion, but due to the nature of Kenjaku, I doubt that it'll even be useful in this fight. And she does put up a pretty good fight against Yuta along with Ryu, being able to take a few of his attacks, and also being able to take a flurry of attacks from both him and Rika. And while we do have to keep in mind that Yuta wasn't really attempting to kill them at this point in time, it is still a very impressive feat. And I'd also like to mention here that even though we all know that Yuta isn't trying to kill Uro and Ryu, since he doesn't want to take their points to make a new rule, this by no metric means that he's holding back his speed, since you can hold back killing intent but still go your fullest speed, but just holding back your attack potency. And since Yuta was pushed to the point of using Rika, I doubt that he was holding back his speed or holding back some speed that would completely end the fight. The most likely interpretation is that he's most likely just relative to Uro, or maybe just a little bit above her. But Uro's feats are pretty cut short because she was literally taken out by back-to-back attacks from Yuta, Kurourushi, and Ryu. It's pretty hard to say how strong she exactly is, but I doubt that she can win against Kenjaku. Even though Kenjaku may be unfamiliar with sky manipulation, he does have countermeasures for it such as Ganesha. And Uro doesn't seem all that physically impressive when you take into account the fact that Kenjaku is able to fight a grade 1 sorcerer and a special grade at the same time. So with that being said, Uro most likely loses to Kenjaku, and if all else fails, he can use his domain expansion, which would most likely win in a battle against hers. So the next player I'd like to go over in this video will be Ryu. Ryu's ability is very simple. He's able to output cursed energy, but it's not like the random finger bearer from the first arc of the series. Ryu has the highest cursed energy output in recorded history. Now this doesn't mean he has the strongest attacks in the series, but simply the raw cursed energy he's able to output is the highest that we've ever seen. Ryu is the one to have the longest fight with Yuta, and the whole time we see them fight in hand-to-hand combat, they're pretty much relative. They're both blocking and trading blows, but Ryu ends up blowing him away with his cursed energy. But he's also able to put up a very good fight with fully manifested Rika, with them both being able to punch each other away. And eventually, he was able to completely destroy manifested Rika. A lot of people people have the misconception that Rika was somehow weakened or already almost gone, but this simply isn't the case. The narrator clearly stated that in 5 minutes the connection between Rika and Yuta would end, implying that it hasn't ended yet. And although some time has passed since he first summoned him, we know it's been less than 5 minutes. And before Yuta and Rika were even able to get to those 5 minutes, a single blow from Ryu would make her dissipate. Keep in mind, Ryu is the only one that did damage to Rika during this entire fight. He hit her once with a granite blast that she completely tanked, and he also hit her one more time like I mentioned before. So 1 granite blast and 2 full punches from Ryu were enough to take out Rika, which should tell you how strong he truly is. And with him also being closer to Yuta than Uro was, he would make a better match for Kenjaku, but unfortunately he does probably still lose. Ryu's curse energy output probably won't do much to Kenjaku, seeing as Kenjaku is most likely faster than it, and even if he isn't, he has multiple curse spirits that can protect him from it. But if I'm being honest, I doubt it would do much to him because people like Yuta and Rika are able to completely tank it and blow it off. And once again, even though he does have a domain expansion, it would most definitely lose to an open barrier domain, such as Kenjaku's. Currently, Kenjaku is 4-0, so the final question is, can he beat the invader of the Sendai colony, that being Yuta Okkotsu? Yuta Okkotsu in the current Jujutsu world has been propped up to be the second strongest Jujutsu sorcerer at Jujutsu High, only second to Satoru Gojo. Yuta is the character that came into the Sendai colony and broke up the deadlock that they had going on, and he was also able to beat one of their particularly strong opponents, that being Ryu, that I just went over. And for all narrative purposes, it seems like Yuta will be the final character that Kenjaku fights, or the other way around. Yuta wants to kill Kenjaku in the place of Gojo, since he doesn't want Gojo to have to kill his best friend once again. But can Yuta actually come up to this task and face off against them? I went over this a little bit in my other video, which is Yuta Okkotsu's final role in Jujutsu Kaisen, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth to the power analysis part of that video. And the honest answer I have is probably not, or at least not alone. Alone, Kenjaku doesn't seem to be impressed by Yuta. He says this himself when he's talking to Gojo, and Gojo tells him to be specifically weary of Yuta. But it does seem like Kenjaku doesn't have an updated database on Yuta's strength, because he mentions how he still has Rika Orimoto's soul, which is just simply not true. So unless Yuta's gotten exponentially stronger, he's probably not going to be a match for Kenjaku at all, or not even something that he would put on his radar. But it is possible that Kenjaku saw his recent fights in the Sendai colony, because he calls him one of the heavy hitters for Jujutsu High. And he also knows that he specifically has the second highest cursed energy in Shinjuku, with the first being Sukuna. The reason I say he probably can't do it alone is because the way it seems to be going now is that Maki and Yuta will be going to fight Kenjaku. I don't find it coincidental that after Gojo has died, they are both nowhere to be seen. Even though Jujutsu High already sent Higuruma and Yuji as backup, they most likely are going to fight a different threat, that being Kenjaku. So as for now, I do not believe that Yuta will be able to beat Kenjaku alone, but he may be able to do it in the future with some help. But that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, since that'll tell me to make more Jujutsu Kaisen content just like this in the future. But yeah, goodbye.